I hope. So good afternoon to everyone. My name is Devyansh Dev, and
Devyansh, I think there's connection problem. Sorry to interrupt.
Wait.
Yeah, it's
let people
sorry,
join in. Relax. Then let people join in. Then you can give 2-3 minutes for people to join in and then start.
Okay, so we wait till then.
So what we're doing is opening the lines early so that people can start joining in. You can start from me at 12 o'clock or 12 to Devyansh.
Please.
So I received a message that we are live. So I think we can start the conversation in the next 1 minute. Good afternoon to all. It is 12 p.m. and welcome to our third webinar series of the Graduate Insolvency Program for the next batch. At the outset, I am praying and I trust that you all are well within your homes and keeping safe during this COVID-19 pandemic. We have with us Dr. M.S. Sahu, who is the chairperson, IBBI, a acclaimed thought leader in the area of securities market and a distinguished public servant. I also have with me Sri Vijay Iyer, partner Deloitte, an insolvency professional and an M&A specialist in the field of financial due diligence. Along with us, there are 3 GIP students. Sarthak Ohri, who's a chartered accountant. We have Kunal, who's a lawyer. And we have Roshni Jain, who's also a chartered accountant. We will have this discussion going on. And before that, we would like to have a few insights from the students themselves, as they say, right from the horse's mouth, how their experience has been so far, and what are some specialist key features of the GIP course that they would like to introduce in the beginning before we have Dr. Sahu give us some thoughts on the course. So Sarthak, on to you.
Yeah, thank you, Devyansh. And I welcome our panelists, Dr. Sahu and Mr. Vijay Iyer on board. So the reason I joined GIP was because I wanted to work into insolvency domain. Wanted to work in business and understand how to work closely with the owners of the business, how to work in operations and closely in a stressed environment, in a hostile environment. And joining GIP has made that endeavor possible. Here at GIP, we are not only focused on insolvency. This has given me much more than what there's IBC or restructuring. I have been able to gather different perspectives of students. There we have classes on personality development. We have various sessions, interaction with industry experts. We have various capstone and brainstorming exercises. So these make a complete blend of everything that make us move on a journey towards becoming a better professional, I believe. So I believe joining GIP has been one of the best decisions of my life after completing my chartered accountancy course. I would like to invite Roshni and Kunal as well to share their perspectives. Roshni, please go ahead.
To add on to what Sarthak has said, I was really fortunate enough to get selected in GIP and learn about the different perspectives in the business world. Like I had studied law earlier. After coming to GIP, I got to learn about finance, and the blend of finance and law today is helping me a lot. I've learned a lot through the group exercises we have been doing here. In groups, there were like multiple students participating from different backgrounds. We had maintained the diversity in each group, so we get different perspectives on the same problem and we have a better solution to it. That is how we have been learning through different pedagogy here, and we look forward to this course.
So since a lot has been said by Sarthak and Kunal about the basic framework of this course, I would like to go into the details of the experiences that we have. We've had experiences where Dr. Sahu himself has given us challenging assignments like the DHFL capstone exercise or the code of resolvability exercise, which sees even beyond insolvency. So the resolvability exercise was on what can be done in case a company faces insolvency, how that can be resolved quickly, so that IBC, it's beyond even IBC. Then we had exciting exercises like Meet with the Legend, where we had the opportunity to research on diverse topics like cross-border insolvency, contentious insolvency, director's duty in twilight zone. And then the best part in all these exercises was when you research, you definitely come up with multiple questions. And then you have industry veterans and legends who come to your campus, and then you have the opportunity to raise those questions in front of them. You get to make them answer your queries. So in all these myriad experiences, GIP has given us.
Exactly as Roshni points out, we have been having conferences and talks where people from the industry were visiting our campus, and we were discussing multiple issues like interface between taxation and insolvency and other multiple topics. We have been learning a lot by learning about different disciplines while learning insolvency.
Right, as rightly pointed out by our students, Sarthak, Roshni, and Kunal, these were some of the insights from the students themselves. I would now invite our chairperson, Dr. M.S. Sahu, as to how does he see any insights that they would like to share about the insolvency profession as a whole, and especially if he can share some points amidst the COVID-19 crisis and how it is another sunrise moment for the profession itself. Dr. Sahu.
Thank you. The COVID-19 is at the top of everyone's thought now. The humanity is passing through the most trying times. We, in fact, do not know what we are in and what the future holds for us. But what is sufficiently clear as of now is that the world is in the grip of COVID-19 with no quick solution in sight. Possibly, it has potential to hurt deeper than the worst health pandemic we had, the Spanish flu of 1980, or the greatest economic depression of 1930, or the biggest financial crisis of 2008, and maybe this may even hurt deeper than all of them put together. Fortunately, the world is united in the war against COVID. The Prime Minister of India is leading the war from the front. He has already addressed thrice in last 10 days or so. But I'm sure these are the times which test us as well as the caregivers. Today, we are more familiar with the caregiver called the health professionals. But this COVID has brought up another set of caregivers to the forefront. They are the insolvency professional. They are to give care when the medical professionals are giving care to human beings. The insolvency professionals will give care to the distressed persons. By distress, I mean the financial distress. They could be companies, they could be human beings, they could be partnership firms. In fact, the profession of insolvency is, what they do best is they can de-stress themselves when they serve a distressed person. That's why in the today's context, they have emerged as another set of frontline caregivers. Often our thinking gets clouded by what we see just in front of our eyes. In January 2019, none of us had anticipated that the world is getting into a situation as we have today in March 20 or April 20. That means 3 months back, 2 months back, none of the people who do all kinds of forecasting, clairvoyants, economists, or even astrologers had any inkling about what the future holds. So in December 19, January 20, everyone was saying the world is rosy, growth rates will go up, everything is fine. But something suddenly happened, and everybody has changed his view about the world. The problem with this is that we look at the future based on the present. We think of a long term based on the short term. It is fundamentally wrong. If you have to think long term, you should think keeping a long term situation on the ground. You need short term to predict short term. If you are using the information available in March, this is for predicting what will happen in April, May. But this situation will not help you to predict what would happen in 2021, 2025, 2018, 2030. So if you have to predict about 2021, 25, 30, your understanding, you have to base the long-term vision of yours based on the long-term performance of the society and economy. That means that from 2005, 2010, 2015, 2018. You can't predict 2020 based on information of a short term of March. Yes, this has come, this has affected, this will impact severely, but nevertheless, this is not the world what we are going to see after 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. So long-term thinking has to be based on the long-term situation. Don't confuse, think of the world based on what happened in the last 15 days. The second aspect of both these are relevant to insolvency. The second aspect is that all over the world, there has been a response to this kind of developments in terms of insolvency laws. Australia has taken a power, they have amended the law allowing the finance minister, the treasurer, to change any provision of the law to meet the emerging needs or in the bankruptcy space. Many countries have enhanced the threshold for triggering insolvency. Many countries, the latest US says that US government gives some doles, some kind of support, income support to people during this time. That income support will not be considered as income of the people for their entitlement to avail fresh tax. Everywhere, every country has responded. India has responded. India has increased the threshold from 1 lakh to 1 crore rupees, has given some other concessions, reliefs to smoothen the process. There is also thinking that if it becomes too worse, applications could be suspended for some time. But please remember that these are the response to a fluid situation. So now the solution, we are giving the fluid solution to fluid situations. These are not long-term rigid solutions to rigid problems. So two things I'm trying to say, that look at the future, not based on the short term. Don't look at the what IBC is going to happen, depending on what temporary adjustments are being done today. So these are of immediate needs, immediate consequences. But once we are through with this, we are back to normal. The second aspect I wanted to talk is that I talked about your caregiver. You deal with distress. the insolvency allows you to be the chief executive officer of a company for 6 months and it extended times. I have spoken to a few insolvency professionals because initially we started with the professionals who have experience of chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary. Eligibility is 10 years, but we have the insolvency professionals who are 92-year-old, 93-year-old. As a chartered accountant with 50 years of experience, we have as insolvency professionals. The point I'm making is that many of these people, 40, 50, 60-year experience people, they have told what they have learned and contributed in one corporate insolvency resolution process is much more than they are earning, they are learning they had over their 40 years of career. This 6 months exposes you so much, gives you so much challenge, gives you so much opportunity to contribute and make a difference. You could save the SR Oil, SR Steel, you could save the JP Infra, the kind of saving the company and thereby saving the lives and livelihood of hundreds, thousands, and lakhs of stakeholders. That is how you relieve the pain of the people, and that is the job satisfaction you have. And we are now looking at preparing more specialized people who can deal with the distress in a much more professional environment. We started this insolvency graduate insolvency program. We started with experienced people. They have done outstandingly well, but we want to move up in the next level, go to the next, take the insolvency profession to the next level. We have started the graduate insolvency program. It's a program by the industry, for the industry, and of the industry. Only for the technical purpose, it is housed in Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. People stay there, classes are held there, practicals are done there, but the people who really run the course are the professionals, top professionals having handled the most complicated resolutions like the SR, Bhushan, all kinds of most complicated things they have handled, and they come, speak, and stay with the participants. So it has been driven by the industry, and that is what it makes a unique program, except for rare cases, which can be done by very textbook things for small portion like company law or accounts or statistics or economics. Every other session is delivered by the industry people only. And that is what it makes unique among all courses available in India in any sphere. You have institutes of repute, you have top academicians, but this has its uniqueness is that the person who does the implementation, he himself comes and delivers the course. It has completed 1 year. It has completed in fact 9 months. It is about to complete. It's a 2-year program. 1 year is classroom, 1 year is internship. And many of you would have seen how difficult for a student to do an internship, find out a firm. Every student tries to find out a firm where he can do the training of, if it's a management course for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, depending on the course. In chartered accountants is a longest internship, but in most of the cases, a lot of effort is required to find out who is willing to take you as an intern. But here, elsewhere, you have people come in good places, not every places, good places, people come to campus for recruitment. But here,
So we missed out on your audience for a bit in between. Now you are audible, sir.
okay. Okay. So what I was talking is that elsewhere, students try very hard to get an internship with a firm, and at good places, good institutes, there is some campus recruitment. But here we have a campus, big brands from insolvency and bankruptcy visiting this institute to take interns They are competing with one another to take the intern 1 year internship and paying the stipend, which is as high as what the other professionals get at entry-level job. This is what the brand the GIP has built, and it's not in India. It has gone even beyond this, beyond India. My experience, I have come and taken a few sessions with these young people. This has so many unique features. There is in the classroom, there is an engineer, there is a statistician, there is a chartered accountant, there is an advocate, and it's a mixture of all kinds of talent coming. But my experience has been, I have taken a few sessions and I have spoken on offbeat subjects. I have gone little beyond the normal syllabus, normal IBC, because our objective is that we do not want to create another just professional. As I told, we are creating a caretaker who has to be passionate, who has to understand the society, economy, human beings, who should have leadership, who should be able to give hope to the people who have lost all hopes. So we are not preparing just professional. That is why we talked about something much beyond, and we did the exercises what are relevant for the society from policy making point of view. So while you do a transaction, individual insolvency, corporate insolvency, but you have the entire macro system at your back. You must understand why we are here. This is why IBC is there. IBC is there, if I can tell very briefly, it is because we are in a free economy, market economy, where all of us welcome competition and innovation, because growth comes from competition and innovation. But in the competition, somebody would lose, somebody will not be able to compete. In innovation, somebody will not be able to adapt to new technology. So that means the current set of people, the entrepreneur has failed in this business. He must have a way to get out of this. He must not remain in Chakravyuh, and let him get out and try his hands. And whosoever can rescue this business or run the business, let him come and do this. So as long as we are interested in growth, we will need competition and innovation. And because of competition and innovation, some firms will lag behind, and these firms which lag behind, they are in distress, financial distress or economic distress. They need to be helped, they need to be rescued, because the resources they have are the resources of the society. We want the resources must serve us to the full extent, all 24 hours of the day. It must be at the service of humanity. No resources should remain unutilized. So as long as we have an economy, we have competition and innovation, we will continue to have distress. And when India is the third largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity, otherwise it is the fifth or sixth, it changes, position changes, the largest economy. And look at its potential, look at its the population, look at the natural resources, the middle class, the imports, exports, everything you can think of for an economy, everything is going well. The largest economy, it is one of the largest economy, but one of the very highest growth economy today. And in this economy, when you put competition and innovation growing at 6%, even at COVID times also, it is not less than 5%. We have 15 lakh companies doing business, the kind of size of the economy. And we have 130 crore Indians for whom we are thinking about individual insolvency. So all these will come. We are thinking about a cross-border insolvency. We are thinking about a group insolvency. All modern things are on the way, and continuously IBC is being revised to make it tailor-made and meet the needs of the people. The IBC itself in the last 3 years has undergone 4 legislative changes, 4 amendment acts. That only shows the commitment of the government to make this succeed. And you would have seen in the recent past Prime Minister making statements after statements about how this government has given exit opportunity, how it is rescuing companies. You can search Google and find the benefits of this. People, it's visible to some people only NPA. NPA is only one of the small things, side things. But even NPA also, if we are able to resolve, this is a great contribution to the economy we are doing. So I think insolvency profession is a great profession, challenging profession. It has also risks, no challenge, no, you can't have a rewarding profession without risks, and not that everybody will be of the highest level, but it has a huge promise, and particularly GIP, which is the first of its kind in the world. In fact, other countries are looking at to replicate this model, because now they find that this is the way to groom a new profession and get the talent at the right time. So I am quite happy that IICA has delivered the first year in an outstanding way and going to take the second batch. But probably these young friends would have come and spoken to you in person, but times are not allowing. But nevertheless, we are trying to reach out to you, but our one interest is that we must get the best talent to this profession. So with this, I stop, and I'll be happy to take a few questions, whatever comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It has been very enriching to hear from you how the caregiver aspect of insolvency profession that you have established, and how 40 years of a profession and 6 months into the practice are unparalleled. And I thank you for that, for giving us this perspective, and also the government perspective, especially of its proactiveness and how the government is very eager to establish ease of exit of our businesses. We have few questions, but before that, I would like to request Shri Vijay Iyer to say a few words before we move on to Q&A, and then begin this round with all of you, our viewers here.
Thanks, Divyansh. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we are able to hear you, yes.
I think it's very difficult to follow Dr. Sahu once he sets the context and a perspective, but I will try. I think he gave a very good perspective on two fundamental points, right? One is the ecosystem and the context as to why the insolvency resolution and the restructuring space in this country is only growing beyond bounds. And the second as to why the GIP program and why, as an insolvency professional, it's so relevant and so important for us at this point in time. I would only echo some of the points made by Dr. Sahu and by all of you all as well. First is, of course, the times which we are facing is a VUCA world, VUCA, which is volatile, unambiguous, complex and ambiguous and uncertain. Volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world. And every day for us is the new normal. But Dr. Sahu has said how across the world, if you look at from the perspective of finance and the ecosystem, there are continuous changes in the law, continuous changes to the economic environment, continuous changing to the banking sector, which governments across the world are bringing in. And similarly to the huge, significant and multiple efforts our government is making to ensure that our economy stays resilient. So restructuring is going to be a very significant role in ensuring that sustainable businesses in today's time remain sustainable, that an insolvency professional, it's a beautiful phrase Dr. Sahu used, caregiver, not a caretaker. If you look at the term caretaker, someone who takes, but a caregiver is someone who gives. An insolvency professional is a caregiver. He takes away the stress of a distressed person, but takes away the stress of a corporate person in distress. And he finds a solution to resolve that stress. And that is therefore an extremely important role to be played in today's environment, perhaps even more important in today's context. And then coming to why GIP is so important, I think he put it also beautifully well. There are 3 or 4 points which come to my mind. The first, of course, is that this is unique. It's iconic. It has not been replicated either by any other executive program in this country or across the world. it's extremely heartening to know, as Dr. Sahu just told us, there are multiple other organizations from the world who would now want to look at replicating GIP. Second, it's a course which is designed by experts and it's delivered by experts. As you put it, as Kunal and Sarthak and you all put it, that you all were trained by experts on the field, experts off the field. You are looking at live cases, which we don't find in other executive programs. And you're learning by experts on the field on real life situations. The third is you get a 360-degree view of the entire restructuring space. You're not just looking at the financial aspects, but you're looking at the social, cultural, behavioral aspects. And that's the outstanding feature of this program, that you're trained by experts, not just from core expertise, but also the other dimensions which are critical to make you a successful insolvency professional. It's not just you are expert in the rules of the game and the law and the regulations, but also the important attributes of character and all that makes, on all the other attributes required to be a successful insolvency professional. And that's the credibility of this program, that you have all these dimensions covered. Fourth, after you complete this program, your options are not limited to just be an insolvency professional. As again, we know there is this entire sector of restructuring is go through significant upheaval. There's so many more new challenges, so many more different opportunities and complex problems that require solutions. So you are fit, you're going to be fit for any role in this entire value chain. And you can also look at an opportunity overseas as cross-border insolvency comes in, group insolvency norms come in. There's going to be more and more interest in that. And therefore, in this dynamic restructuring world, GIP actually is a leap forward. Divyansh?
Thank you, sir. And I must say that as an industry partner to GIP, we are indebted to you for all the expertise that you have showcased both in the classroom and also helping us navigate through this course. And I've agreed to you with all the points that you have established, that why this course is unique, why it sets it apart from the other executive programs available. And I thank you for that. And now I would request our students, Sarthak, Kunal, and Roshni, to spearhead the Q&A rounds through Facebook chats that we have been receiving, and also through any other queries that they would like to touch upon for our esteemed panelists.
So there has been a question by the students that you would like to know about the summer internships and law firms as well. And all the law, sorry,
go ahead, complete your question, please.
Yeah, so there has been a question regarding the summer internships as well, and will the law firms be coming? So I'd request Kunal to put some light on that, since he's a lawyer.
Sure, Sarthak. What we see today is a lot of firms have been coming up for your placements here for internships. We can see consultancy firms, law firms, some private equity firms as well coming for our internship programs. The Big Fours have come, then Piramal Capital has come, IARC has come. And from the law firms, we can see Khaitan, AZB, and other tier 1 firms who are coming for internship programs.
As a member of student placement committee, I must also add on to this point that our internship season has been very fulfilling and fruitful, not just for lawyers, but all sorts of professionals, be it engineers, be it chartered accountants, be it CE company secretaries. So we have diverse setup. We have consultancy firms, we have law firms coming in. And if you are a lawyer, then be assured that we have some very good law firms that you can look up to. And yeah, I think the summer internship season has been very fulfilling for that matter. Next question, Kunal or Roshni.
So there's this question by Mr. Manit Lumba. He wants to ask, that with an increase in threshold for initiating insolvency, how will it affect the business of the insolvency professional? So I think our regulator and our industry veteran would like to answer.
I think we have frequent changes in the law. Companies Act 1956 was replaced by 2013, and that changed the role of many professionals. Income tax is being rewritten. Every corporate law is being rewritten very fast. But does that anyway affect the work opportunities or career prospectus of a professional? It does not. We cannot be saying that the chartered accountants are losing work because this change in law happened. There's one change, but that brings up another new work. Companies Act, we closed the chapter of transfer of securities, but we created a new work through dematerialization where transfers became automatic. So no professional actually loses or gains just because there is a change in the law. My second submission is that I told you the measures which are taken in fluid times are not for regular times. Certain things are done today. Today, government gives, let's say, 5 kgs of rice free to some people. But that's not a regular change. The regular change that every time, every year, it will keep on giving. So there is a temporary problem. To address that temporary problem, there is a temporary solution. So please don't confuse. That's why in the beginning, I made two things, that short-term situation should not dictate your long-term vision. Fluid solution should not affect the lasting problem. What is our lasting problem? Lasting problem is there is a competition, innovation, growth in the economy, and this will bring distress. We need a mechanism to help them. So please don't get carried away by the threshold. Further, threshold has been increased from 1 lakh to 1 crore. But please look at the applications admitted to NCLT for CIRP. You will find hardly few applications which have less than 1 crore default and have been admitted. So on ground, people come and use this where there is a substance, where there is a value, and where they will make a difference. So practical use wise, the companies which have gone into this process have bigger defaults.
There is a connected question, sir, on this, and it says that the third insolvency report suggests that the threshold shall be increased to 50 lakh, but why the government then increased it to 1 crore?
That is the recommendation of the committee. That recommendation has not yet been examined. Government has not yet taken a view. A situation came, that situation has to be dealt, and that's why this change was made. You would have seen the, let's say there's an association called National Association of Restaurant Owners, something like that. That advised, it has a 5 lakh membership. It advised all 5 lakh to close this up. There are many other things happening in the economy. I'm giving you just by way of example. These 5 lakh restaurants, all of them would have a default of ranging from lakh, 2 lakh, 5 lakh. Very few would have 1 crore. But would we like that all 5 lakh restaurants should get into this resolution process? If they get into the resolution, who will be rescuing them? Where are the people to rescue? So extraordinary situations require extraordinary measures, and this measure is an extraordinary measure. That's why I'm saying that don't go by what is done to address an immediate problem. So IBC is not to address, there are problems. So banks have also told that they will not press for repayment for 3 years. They will have some kind of moratorium. So everybody, everywhere in the system, there is some kind of accommodating attitude. But these are for a specific problem. Once that problem is over, we come back to normal.
To move on, we have one more question from Vatsal Gusalia. He says that looking at GIP as a prospective career option, I was wondering that will young professionals passing out of GIP have as much standing before other experienced professionals, since this field demands experience given the amount of money and responsibility involved? So I would like to put this question to Vijay here, sir. How does the industry look forward to GIP students?
Okay, it's a good point. It's a very interesting question, Kunal. I'll put it this way, okay, that insolvency professionals, you cannot be an armchair consultant. For an insolvency professional to be successful, you need to be out there in the midst and get your hands dirty right up to your elbows or perhaps to your shoulders. And today, the people with fire in the belly, with that degree of spirit to get things done, if I may say, are with the younger generation. We need people who are more innovative in thought, are more creative, are disruptive. Because what you're working out in an insolvency resolution environment is an extremely disruptive environment. So people who are able to think on the ground, think constantly, come up with different and unique solutions, not get bogged down by old, tried and tested methods. It's a combination, it's a mix of experience, skill, talent, and fire in the belly. And therefore, I do believe that people who go through this GIP program have that unique, distinct ability that you are going to be extremely well trained by the experts for over a period of 2 years. And then once you're trained, you're going to be hitting the ground running. You're not going to be a novice. And that's the differentiation, I would say, of GIP. I hope that helps, Kunal.
I would like to supplement. I think a young sportsman is not afraid that he can't play because there are so many experienced players already on the ground. GIP is designed to make them at least equivalent to an experienced professional. The requirement is 10 years experience to be an insolvency professional as a chartered accountant or advocate. But this person has not gone through a program of 2 years of a GIP. So the endeavor is not only selecting the people through a top examination, selecting the best talent at a young age, but they are being given in 2 years as much as one would acquire in normal circumstances through experience of 10 years. If I go strictly by your logic, then even a person with a 10-year experience, he would think, how can I compete with a person with 30-year experience? Then there is no end to it. So what we want is actually, as my friend Vijay told, do you have that drive, that thinking, that sharpness, that talent, and you are getting these 2 years along with 1 year practical experience in one of the top insolvency firms. So I don't think that you are, I give you another example. Government of India recruits officers to Indian Administrative Service and they are under a certain age. These youngsters join and straight posted as sub-divisional magistrates or district collectors at very young age. You find any difficulty with them? Because there are other experienced people also with 20 years, 30 years as officers. There is a role for everyone. There is a role for an experienced officer. There is a role for also a young officer. What matters is, what I always keep on saying, what is inside you, the attitude you have, not the aptitude. The attitude, the thrust of this course is actually building the right attitude to help in distressed situations. Thank you.
Exactly, sir. I completely agree with you. And being in this course for 9 months, I definitely agree that I'm ready for the industry today. And what matters today is what energy I do carry with me today inside. I definitely agree with both of you, sir. Thank you. To continue, we have a further question referring to our previous webinar. Akshay Sharma says that for being a good insolvency lawyer, you also need to be a good economist. So he's asking your suggestions for understanding economics, how one can pursue to learn economics.
Well, there are specialized courses in economics, in law, in accountancy, in management, in technology. But insolvency GIP course is not a specialized course like any other course that you study only law, only economics, only statistics. Those things you have already studied as a part of BTech, chartered accountancy, and even if you have not studied, once you have done a particular course and do a course like this, nothing is difficult for you. You need to put in a little effort. But this course gives you, makes you a rounded, all-rounded personality. Along with the personality, there is a bit of economics, bit of law, bit of statistics, as much the minimum to understand the insolvency environment. So there is already a built-in mechanism, and as I told you earlier, a few sessions I have taken. I myself have taken sessions on economics. Of course, the other faculty would have come and done this economics, but there is an exposure to every side of insolvency, because insolvency is not, many people say that insolvency law is the mother law. That means you have to understand a bit of every law. Even as a lawyer also is not enough. You have to understand a bit of constitution, a bit of labor law, a bit of stamp act, everything. So this is, you are a professional of professionals, because you are empowered to hire any professional to help you. You will hire advocate, you will hire chartered accountant, you will hire company secretary. So our objective is not that you yourself will become an advocate or chartered accountant or economist. You should be able to understand and appreciate the inputs what professionals give to you. That means you require a little application of mind, right thinking about what is appropriate, fairness, objectivity. That ability we want to develop. Thereafter, anybody will study any textbook and understand it, or can take help of a professional. Thank you.
There has been another question asked regarding valuation, specifically to Dr. Sahu. Will GIP is exclusively to make insolvency professional, or will he get exposed to registered valuer as well? And the connected question goes like, is there any educational program on valuation?
Very interesting question, very important question. Two things. When we conceptualize insolvency profession, we made it a kind of extension of other professions, of chartered accountants, of advocate, of cost accountancy. Of course, we allowed some people with a managerial experience. Every profession starts like this. Somebody is working in an area somewhere related to this area. He comes in course of time, this becomes a full-time profession. There is no objection of an insolvency professional becoming a valuer. He has to meet the requirements of becoming a valuer. A chartered accountant can become valuer, an engineer can become valuer. There are set formats, rules for that. An insolvency professional, if he wishes, can become a valuer, no harm. But it can't be that he is the insolvency professional of a transaction, and for that transaction he wants to work as a valuer. That is in conflict of interest. You should not be playing two roles in the same transaction and take money because your left hand will pay money to your right hand. That is not acceptable. When insolvency law came, a need was felt. We had a valuation profession already. We have about estimated 50,000 people Many of them may be part-time or extension of another profession, doing a practice as a valuation professional under different laws, more particularly in the banking sector, in the wealth tax, income tax sector. Also, some people do in the Companies Act, and the insolvency and bankruptcy. We did not have till recently a framework for regulation and development of profession of valuation professionals, like we have a chartered accountancy profession, advocates profession. We have now in some form insolvency profession, but we did not have anything for valuation profession like that. So anybody and everybody was practicing. There is no standard eligibility norms, but it created some problems. So their thinking came that now let us also provide a framework whereby that profession gets respectability while they are also held accountable for the services they render to users. Keeping that in view, under Companies Act, a rule was made in 2017 valuation rules that provides a framework for registration regulation of valuers, but that only says that they will do valuations required under Companies Act and IBC. Now a further thinking has started to take that profession. About 3,000 such professionals are already registered with IBBI, and they are doing service for Companies Act and IBC. Now thinking has started to take it to next level, give them full potential what they deserve, giving a statutory status, making a proper institute, having a proper course, having code of conduct, having a registration with somebody, and holding them accountable, protecting the interest of a users of valuation services. So for that thinking, there was a committee set up by the government recently. That committee has submitted the report. We should wait for some time for government to take the decision on that. So like chartered accountancy profession we are also on the way to have a valuation profession under a statutory framework.
So there is a question with practical question related to ILFS and IL&FS resolution plan. To Mr. Shashwat Sharma, I would like to say that we would address this question separately. Since this webinar is about GIP, we would like to keep your question in cold storage for the time being. So the next question is by Mr. Nikhil Saraf. It's with respect to the COVID situation. He's curious that if this situation continues, at present the extension for 6 months, which might be provided, how will it affect the company and the insolvency professionals?
Mr. Iyer?
It's an interesting question. So first, of course, at this point in time,
COVID situation, he's curious that if this.
Yeah. So it's an interesting question, Roshni. So thanks a lot for that. I think at this point of time, as a caregiver, if you're an insolvency professional of any company, what you're looking and focusing right now is a high degree of resilience. And resilience means the ability to face the storm right now and come back quickly. So right now, the focus on the here and now. You take care of trying to ensure that are people safe? Is the company safe? Is it secure? Are people all locked down and there is no leakage? After that, you need to look at recovery. And after recovery, you look at the long-term future. These are the 3 stages. And as an insolvency professional, you will have a differing role in all these 3 stages. As you then take the company to resolution and find someone who will then take it on further in its growth path. And that is, again, a very unique thing in today's environment, that as an insolvency professional, you are going to be, shall I say, best placed in this environment to provide that kind of advisory support, and not just advisory support, but as a person on the ground who will implement some of these action steps. And therefore, again, to bring the context of GIP, it brings this program all that more relevant in the context of today, because I love that phrase Dr. Sahu used, because you're going to be a professional of a professionals. And a very good professional is one who he's got his core expertise, but who has got a basic understanding of everything else, so that he may not have the right answers, but he at least has the right questions. And that's what the GIP program again brings you into that context, right? I'm sure this program, which is going to start this year, some of the academic context would definitely be more updated, more relevant for the significant VUCA situation we have now. And I'm sure that there's going to be all those perspectives being brought in. And those who are going to go into the internship now, I think you have a fantastic opportunity, perhaps once in a lifetime, where you're going to be hitting the ground running, getting into projects which are, as soon as the lockdown is open, how are you going to ensure that things still remain secure? How are you going to start the path of recovery and then the path of resolution? So I'm not sure if I answered the question directly, Roshni, but I hope this broader context helped.
Yes, sir, definitely it helps.
Sir, there has been a question that for representation before NCLT, you need the support of a lawyer. And is there any special provision for the GIP trained students to represent in NCLT?
See, well, I'll try some. I'll at least give you the practical experience. When you are a resolution professional, I must say the courts have been extremely supportive. Okay, obviously, if the matter is extremely complex, technical issues of law, you will need the support of a lawyer to present the case properly. But wherever there are commercial issues involved, and for example, challenges on claims, challenges on payments, the court is very keen to hear from the resolution professional himself or herself. And that gives you that opportunity. And as Divyansh was mentioning recently, I think one of the courses you all are going through right now in GIP is actually courtcraft. So I'm sure, and I know for certain that training to be how to appear in court, the fact that all of you all have turned up fantastically well, even for a Saturday morning program, obviously the training in GIP has helped you be very presentable. All of you all are have that presence of mind and the personality to understand, and therefore I'm sure all of you all will be outstanding even in court. And I'm sure it's part of the GIP program as apart from your innate talent that has nurtured you and cultivated you to this level. And I'm sure with experience which you have in the 1 year of internship with resolution professionals, when you go to court, you see how the resolution professional conducts himself or herself, and other professionals in court conduct themselves. You will get that learning and hopefully the opportunity to present your case as well.
Definitely, sir. Personality development has been one of the major aspects in this course.
And I would like to add to that, Kunal. This is something which even Dr. Sahu stressed right up front when we were developing the program. It is not just personality development, it is character development and all the other attributes of character. The fundamental 5 aspects of integrity, independence, impartiality, objectivity, and competence. If I say that again, it's obviously integrity, independence, impartiality, objectivity, and competence. These 5 soft skills, shall I say, is also a very conscious part of your program, right? It's part of the structured program as well, whereby when you get onto the field, you bring in and see how this is brought out to the world. Whereas all aspiring insolvency professionals, it is a tough task. You are going to make a few friends and multiple enemies. So therefore, you have to stay on the right path. And it's only when you have strength of character that you're able to do that and earn a good team. And therefore, personality development and character development is an integral part of the GIP program, which I think is why it leads to success. Sorry, Kunal, thanks.
I would also highlight, apart from the personality development, sharpening our communication skills was also one of the major aspects of this course. We were also trained to be mediators. We have also undergone through the 40 hours mediation training program, to learn negotiation skills, which are very much needed for an insolvency professional today.
Oh, fantastic.
So at this juncture, we have an additional question which says that, which is answered, and if you would like to stress more on it, the question is that if this COVID lockdown situation will continue, and how will this affect the company and professionals? I think you've already answered it, and just going through the questions that we have had so that we do not miss out on anything.
Let me add a little more context than Divyansh. You see,
sure, sir.
I think, and some of the question is to the 1 lakh 1 crore. I think personally, it's a very good step. One of the successes of the IBC code has been because the government and the regulator have ensured that the law stayed relevant. The amendments which were made in a very timely manner address the situations on the ground and the ask of the market. Both the government and the regulator. The government made the amendments to the code, the regulator to the regulations, right? And therefore, even increasing this limit 1 lakh to 1 crore ensures that the law stays relevant for today's time. And only when a law is relevant would it be helpful and would it be usable, shall I say, in an environment like this. Else it could get diluted, it will get misused, and perhaps it won't be then thereafter a sustainable solution. As we have seen in some of the other laws, unfortunately, which has happened, right? Be it the SICA law or the SARFAESI law, the effectiveness of those laws have diminished, unfortunately. IBC's effectiveness to remain, for relevance to remain, it's only when these kind of changes are made so that it stays relevant and in context with the market realities that the success happens. And the second dimension I would like to add is that when you're trained to be an insolvency professional through the GIP program, let us be mindful that your only role is not that to be a resolution professional. In fact, in today's market, everybody wants to do the role other than the RP role. You want to be part of the RP team, you want to do the valuation, you want to do the transaction review, you want to take care of operations, you want to take care of finance and working capital, you want to take care of cash flows, you want to be able to take care of all the secretarial compliances and hold board meetings and shareholder meetings. You want to have the ability to hold committee of creditor meetings. And there's the whole huge aspect that you want to be part of a resolution. There's so many dimensions to the RP's role that people want to be part of that. And that's just the IBC part. Again, Dr. Sahu had said some time ago, the greatest success of IBC is when it's not used. So when people start finding that there's so many other opportunities available that I could negotiate at the banks outside IBC, I could restructure my debt before it's taken to IBC. Just the threat of IBC sometimes has ensured there's better behavior by the creditors and borrowers. And there is a lot more interaction. And in today's time, when it's going to be even more uncertain, there's going to be a desperate need for professionals who understand restructuring, who understand banking, who understand terms of loans. What is rescue finance? How could I change the terms of my financing? How do I sustain? What is the level of liquidity I require to ensure that I stay liquid and it's solvent for these times? And these are all the opportunities an insolvency professional have. And that's what, therefore, this COVID situation actually is only going to give that one more dimension to an insolvency professional to be relevant and successful. I hope that helps, Devansh.
Definitely, sir. In fact, I would like to concur with your view. In fact, you earlier mentioned that in such a scenario where the environment is distressed, a person has to come forward and de-stress the people. He has to take their stress away from them. And then the IP becomes irrelevant. So another question I have is, which will be relevant for our students to answer really, since we have experienced that. This year's course structure will be same as the previous batch, where for initial period, lawyers were majorly taught accounts and CAs were given exposures to legal regimes. So as per my experience in the first week itself, I was taught a lot of aspects of Constitution of India. And then we studied various commercial and business law, ranging from SARFAESI, Transfer of Property Act, Limitation Act, and various other laws. which helped us gain a perspective of how the laws come forward through a lawyer's perspective. We had lawyers teaching us these courses, and similarly for lawyers were taught accounts, they were taught financial management and various other subjects, so that we could have a blend of everything. And all that happened in the first trimester, which we call preparatory phase. And also, sir, while the accounts classes were going on, CAs were continuously sitting with lawyers, helping them learn the basic journal entries and to framing of financial statements. And same happened when we as a CA or maybe an engineer who has to learn both law as well as accounts. There's a peer-to-peer learning concept that I would really appreciate here.
And that is why diversity of batch becomes a great asset for all of us. This batch is also open to engineers, and that is where engineers, lawyers, chartered accountants come across as a team. And when we get projects, when we apply our mind, I think as a lawyer, Sarthak may think as a chartered accountant, and then there's an engineer who would think in that ways. That is where the real blending of knowledge happens. That is where we really put our minds into application, and that is what in real sense is peer-to-peer learning. What do you think, sir? How peer-to-peer learning is in this course is one of its greatest assets?
Go ahead, Dr. Sahu, sir. You may have some perspectives on that in your interaction with students, sir.
In fact, the past year, I would say, was an experiment. We have learned many things which would be used this year to improve it. Rightly, we get all perspectives. We have brought all kinds of professionals in the past batch, but that may not be the pattern in this year, but that is expected this year. We definitely expect it to be much better than what we did last year in terms of many things, including having a more structured delivery, having more reputed professionals. Because in the past time, we had to convince people, there's a GIP, please can you come and talk to our students? But this year we have interest that people are saying, can I come and speak to the GIP students? So we expect change happening, like the firms are coming to take them as interns. So the industry person also feels that if he has not taught at GIP, he is probably not important enough. So now seniors are interested to come and stay at IICA, spend time with the students and take sessions with them.
So there is this question by Mr. Kushagra. He wants to know whether practicing CAs need to surrender the COP at the time of internship at GIP, assuming it to be a paid internship. Yes, Mr. Kushagra, it's a paid internship. Vijay sir, would you like to answer this? Surrendering your COP.
I think the internship is still part of your educational qualification. It's not that you're taking up a job, okay? And therefore, I would believe that you may not need to surrender your COP. But I'm not best placed to answer this question. I'm sorry, Roshni. We may seek the guidance of IIPI, the Insolvency Professional Agency for Institute of Accountants, who can help us. But as far as I know, when you're studying, you may not need to do this unless anybody else. Any of you all have a COP in which you all have to surrender? I'm not sure.
So completely agree, sir. I think the ICAI has some regulations for its professional members, and going back to them and putting your query to ICAI would be the most helpful resource to get the right answer in this regard.
Yeah, one more question from
technical answer ICAI can give, but it is not also right that when you do internship, you also do the practice as a CA. So you cannot, whether actually you hold a piece of paper authorizing to practice or COP is not the substantive part. Whether you can really be an intern and practice as CA is material. And I think answer to that is no. You cannot do chartered accountant practice when you are doing internship and vice versa.
We have one more question from Shashwat Sharma. He says, what will be the personal liability of an IP if something is to go wrong in the time period where he is in control of the company or corporation? I would like to answer this question in that it is only when the insolvency professional gets into any fraudulent practices or unethical practices that he would be held liable, and not in any other cases. I would like to add anything to this onto you.
Kunal, that's a very interesting question. Yes, the RP is personally liable for all his actions, just like any other professional. But there is a very good safeguard in the IBC itself. Any act done with the intent or done in good faith is fine. Okay, so you're right. If somebody acts in a fraudulent manner, or is professional misconduct, or is not walking the path which is the straight and narrow, then obviously that person must bear the consequences. Else then otherwise you have nothing to fear, because truth will anyway ultimately prevail.
Very true, sir.
If I can supplement a bit, but not a very substantive thing, insolvency professional is regulated by the IBBI. Only IBBI is authorized to take any action against IP, including a criminal prosecution. That means somebody else can't just go and file a FIR against an IP for the work. One can file a FIR for some other criminal activity in society. But in relation to work, it is the IBBI which can go and file a complaint with the criminal court or initiate a disciplinary proceeding. So IBBI has to be first convinced, is there a merit in the allegation? And IBBI, I believe, has a system to distinguish between the two.
We have another very interesting question.
Yes, Kunal, please go on.
Chandrasekharan says, as a IP once insolvency resolution process starts, he takes up the chair of CEO or MD, etc. for 270 days. I would like to say it's not 270 days, it's 180 days. And if the period is extended, then it will go on for further. Further, he says that, will IP get live threat regarding from people of the company or family-run businesses?
Yes. Okay, let's put it this way. One of the biggest failings of insolvency professionals is to develop an exaggerated sense of self-importance. Okay. One must be mindful, just because you have a long list of powers and rights, please don't have any delusions of grandeur. You have a responsibility and a task on hand, and that's what you need to fulfill. Right. You may hear stories of threats, perceived threats, real threats, some personal, some financial, or there are all the challenges one may find in any other professional, right? As long as you stick to the code, stick to the regulations, stick to the law, have a good team with you, and you stay your course to do the right thing the right way, you would have nothing to fear. There are enough protections in our system to negate any such threats, right? The regulator is there. The regulator has fulfilled very successfully 3 dimensions for keeping the system alive. Okay, I'll tell you. One is they've ensured that the law and regulations stay relevant. Second, they have given clear guidance in terms of training, on continuous training through the system, through the regulator, through the insolvency professional agencies. There's continuous training, continuous learning and development, continuous awareness. And third, as Dr. Sahu said, IBBI is the one who can take up to task any resolution professional who may have erred from the correct path. So again, they have been very prompt in taking disciplinary action where required. So if you walk the straight and narrow, the regulator of the system will hold your hand and ensure that you walk that straight and narrow. If you choose to walk away from the straight and narrow, then obviously you will face all the other consequences. Kunal.
Yes. Kunal, do you
Divyansh wants to walk away from the straight and narrow.
reach the end of the question? And there's this last question that I see on the screen is that, can you please discuss about the scholarships available for this course? So once you enter into the course, there's a scholarship that the State Bank of India scholarship that comes in, which is at the end of trimester 2, which is about 4 lakhs of rupees. And that is a scholarship that is in place right now, but there are more to come as well. So this scholarship that I know of, that I'm telling you right now, which is the State Bank of India scholarship. So we have almost reached the end of
recently, IICA has decided to give 4, and effort is on also to seek some more scholarships. See, it takes time for things to materialize. We got a few chair professors, but we have not been able to recruit someone. The process is on. So by the second batch in place, we should have a number of scholarships. For first batch, we had 1 only. But as I told, IICA is giving 4 scholarships now. That means 5 scholarships are available. Some more will also be added. The endeavor is that somebody qualifies for admission, but should not fail to pursue the course just because money is not available. If there is a student like that, and you bring it to our notice, we will definitely find a way that he continues the course and his course will somehow, either scholarship, loan, in some form, it is funded. Yes, of course, in addition to scholarship, SBI also gives a loan for the entire amount of the course fee to any student whosoever is interested.
Thank you, sir. This is an end of the online question that we have received till now. Now, if you would like to share any insights, perspectives, interest, or your experience with GIP at any stage during the last year, please feel free to do so. Then we look forward to concluding the session. Any closing remarks on your end that we can have right now, or anything under the sun that you'd like to discuss?
I think the insolvency reforms is in the right track. It is getting enriched with every amendment in the law. And new features are being added, as I just told you, a feature called cross-border insolvency, group insolvency. These things are getting added. Personal insolvency of personal guarantors has started. Insolvency Law Committee has submitted its report. It has talked about a new, different form of fresh start process, which will really make it implementable. So there is a continuous thinking to improve the systems and processes, enhance the capacity of the IBBI, of NCLT and LAT, Debt Recovery Tribunal, capacity of insolvency professionals. So continuous effort to build capacity, continuous effort to fine-tune the rules, regulations, law to meet the changing needs and bring in newer and newer features. There is a commitment, all-round commitment from authorities as well as the stakeholders to see that this reform is implemented in the right earnest. We have seen the early outcomes, which has been very, very encouraging. See, Mr. Bijoy Iyer was the I am the insolvency professional of one of the largest companies which have been revived. So many companies which would have gone into death in a normal course, they have been rescued. NPA situation has been dealt. Entrepreneurs are finding an exit route. So many things are happening. So much of outcome has been very interesting, appreciated. So I think this is on the right track. It holds promise for everyone, including insolvency professional. Thank you.
And I will just add, Divyan, just to say that my personal experience in terms of interacting with all you students, part of the GIP program of this batch, has been fantastic. I have learned a lot whenever I've tried to teach you all my pitfalls. And the reason being, I think you all are an extremely bright set of students because only the top of the top are selected for this. And again, you all come from very diverse background and you all are not hesitant to ask questions and challenge positions. So it's a fantastic learning experience. And therefore, I'm sure all of you all know that, we as a firm also are identified 5 interns from across different fields for the training for the next 1 year. And some of the other institutions also have identified not just 1 or 2, but multiple internships from this program. So I think this is a fantastic program, a great asset for the insolvency resolution environment. And given the fact that we have the brightest of minds guiding this program, we have the chairmanship of Dr. Sahu, the chairmanship of Dr. Sharma of the IICA, Dr. Neeti Shikha, who is running this program, and all the other stalwarts, and all of you all, I think only success is an obvious outcome. Thanks, Divyansh.
Thank you. I think we have those very encouraging words from you, sir. We are humbled by your kind words of both of you. And thank you for constantly being friends of GIP, if I would say, not just industry partner, but friends of GIP. And to all our viewers who have been listening to us patiently, thank you for all your questions. If there are any unanswered questions, we would be getting back to you in written over our Facebook page. Stay tuned to this space for more webinars in times to come. And please feel free to reach out any of the student representatives here for any other questions that you might have in future with respect to your application, admissions, or etc. etc. So thank you everyone. Thank you Sarthak, thank you Kunal, thank you Roshni, thank you Vijay sir, thank you Sahu sir. It has been a wonderful experience for all of us, and we look forward to your guidance more in times to come, especially this batch as they go into the next phase of their journey, which is the internship phase. We will be constantly in touch even more. So thank you so much. We are indebted to you for your time. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, GIP students.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
As
sir.
I told you, I would, since I had not given time, I wanted to give some time. I'll ask Madam Neeti Shikha to fix a time slot. But the topic I would discuss is the fresh start process. That means there is an insolvency law committee report that has 10-20 pages how to replace the existing provisions in a fresh start process and bring a new provision. So please go through that report, 10-20 pages. Then I will structure it and how we'll discuss. I'll tell Madam Neeti Shikha. So we'll discuss fresh start process. And we'll discuss fresh start, what is recommended in ILC.
Right, sir. So, sir, we look forward to your time. Please let us know the schedule so we'll plan accordingly and get prepared for it.
Yeah.
And we will stay in touch with ma'am over the next set of procedures.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Sir, I'm so sorry, sir. We are still live. If you don't mind for a minute.
Yeah.
Sir, we are still live. I'm just closing it. If you just give me a minute.
I think that bit I'll give some other time then, yeah. Yeah, so that you need a proper sentence, na? I'll do some other time.
Yes, sir.
I'm not doing it now. We'll do some other time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, as per your convenience.
We are cognizant of that fact, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.